Okay, now we're on and ready to go. Right. It's the sessions are being recorded, so we've just got to make sure there's enough of a delay between the time I start speaking to the time we can click the buttons and get moving. Okay. How you guys all doing? Halfway through the second day? Had a feed? Feeling good? All ready to have a sleep now? Not now. No, of course, not now. The session after this one, right? So, I'm actually quite surprised by the number of people in the room. Dashboarding is obviously becoming quite a big thing to organisations now. I think if we'd given the same presentation 2 years ago, we probably had half the number of people in the room. So it just sort of goes to show how what we're doing inside the business intelligence world and shaping and changing data and presenting it is having some meaning with businesses. How many of you went to Donald Farmer's presentation this morning? Okay, excellent. So we've got a good boundary, or good platform to build some knowledge on. Right, anyway, so what we're here for is looking at dashboard or advanced dashboard creation using SharePoint 2010. My name is Rob Hawthorne. I'm a principal consultant with a company called Prophecy, which is a specialist Microsoft Business Intelligence and data warehousing provider. That's all we do. We don't try and build you applications. We don't try and do document management or content management or anything like that, because it's not our core business. Our core business is data warehousing, data management. That's where we operate and stick at. This is basically our little agenda. Now, what I'm trying to do this year, who's seen me present before? A few people. Okay. Now, guys, when you've seen me present before, we've ended up with quite a large number of slides. Because I like to do that to my audience. I like to give them a large number of slides. But what I'm doing this year is I'm changing it a little bit. I've cut down the number of slides and we go pretty much straight for demos. Now, the problem with this is that demos don't always work. Demos are challenging. Demos run slow because they run on Hyper-V machines and things like that. So, you have to be patient with me. Okay, we might have a couple of instances where things should be nice and fast and reacting like that, and they take a little bit longer than expected. We're going to be basing this demo on what's known as the Microsoft BI All-Up Demo, or the Microsoft All-Up BI Demo, or something like that they call it. And it's version 9.2, and it can be downloaded from the partner site for any of you that are partner organisations. So have a play with and a look at. Okay, so what we're going to have a look at is a quick overview of SharePoint and Microsoft Business Intelligence. Now, this is a sort of an extension from what Donald Farmer was talking about this morning, and what Marcel was talking about earlier this morning as well. Then we're going to have a look at a scenario, and then we're going to go through how we actually build that scenario. Sound fair? Yes? Nods? Yes? There's seats down here, guys, if you want spots. Always the Kiwis sit up the back, eh? You get onto any bus in the world and there's a Kiwi, they're in the back. I don't know what that is. Why? I've never quite understood that. Sorry? So usually they're talking about weakness. Tomato sauce. It's the same in the US. You go into the US, all the Americans sit in the front of the bus, all the Kiwis straight to the back. And I'm guilty of it as anyone. Okay. So, a little bit about Microsoft Business Intelligence. There are 3 core assets that Microsoft are trying to divide with their business intelligence. Empowering the people by giving them self-service access and insight. For those of you that went to Marcel's session, that's actually quite hard to say fast, by the way. For those of you that went to his session, you would see how Power Pivot is actually allowing you to leverage that self-service capability using familiar interface and tools. Now, these are things that you already probably own, like Excel, that's right. And that other word that begins with A that makes me tremble. Access, that's right. You'd be amazed the amount of applications that people build in those 2 tools. The idea, if you follow on from where Donald's thinking was this morning, is that the desktop is an absolutely cluttered place to work, right? I know my personal desk space is covered in papers and stuff and things like that. My computer system seems to be pretty well organised. I don't know why, but my personal working space isn't. But the desktop is a cluttered and disorganised place, and it allows me to go and find data and freeform access it and do whatever I like. And I can pull data in from all sorts of different places that is not available inside a corporate data warehouse or a managed IT infrastructure. And using tools like Access and Excel actually allow me to do that, to leverage that capability very easily. Then, what we're talking about is improving organisational value. So making our organisation collaborative. We want to share information. So if I've got this lovely spreadsheet with all these nice, pretty KPIs on and things like that, and I think, oh, my manager's going to find that amazing, I can email him the spreadsheet, right? That's what we used to do in the old days. What do we use now when we're doing spreadsheets? Excel services. Very good. So Excel services allows us to now basically create a report out of that Excel document, publish it into a browser, and email people links instead. This helps us to create alignment and accountability. By actually having people responsible for KPIs or targets or measures or those sorts of things, it makes them accountable for it. You've also got to have owners for those KPIs. You've got to have somebody who's going to measure it and make sure that people are doing what they should be doing. Guys, there are some seats in the front if you want to come down, unless you're sort of hoping to get out the door quick. Also, the Microsoft system has got to be trusted. It's got to be scalable. Okay, and so what we're talking about there by trusting is we're talking about the information that I'm being given is correct for what I'm using it for. So the quality of data is fit for purpose. Who's heard that term before? Yeah, it's great gleaning stuff from other presenters, isn't it? It makes life easy. It also should be secure. Now, for those of you that want to understand security in depth for SharePoint, I'm doing another presentation, not after this one, it's after that one. It's like 4:15 or something, I think it is, which talks about securing end-to-end the solution. And it's by also having it in a nice, trustworthy and secure place, it means that we can make the management of the solution better and we can increase what our developers are doing. So they can turn code around faster and make things happen quicker for the business. Right, so what we're going to look at is this closed loop BI. Now there's this wonderful demo called Sales Forecasting, which does all sorts of things like visual display of status information and product leads to explore data and those sorts of things. They're all in the demo and built and ready to go. It's a good way of understanding the tools and how they interact. Relevance for most businesses in New Zealand, though, is very low. I do not know of a bike manufacturer in New Zealand. Except maybe Avanti. Avanti manufacture bikes here, but that would be about it. We don't really have the same sort of sales focus as what this demo's got built into it. However, there is no reason why that information cannot be extrapolated out into another business world. Prophecy does a lot of work with Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. We take a lot of their information that they've got sitting around in all sorts of different places and bring it together for them so they can create some KPIs and measure the business and see how it's tracking. Using the previous tool set, not the current one. Right. Okay, so in our closed loop BI, we've got monitoring exploration. So this is a visual display of what's actually going on inside the business for the product teams. Allowing our product leads to explore data, and then we've got workflow, update, and approval. With SharePoint 2010, we can now put workflow into our BI solutions. Why would we do that? Awkward silence. No one wants to speak up? Okay. Think about it if I am, I'm a retail guy sitting inside a shop, and I've got a quota to achieve every month, and we've seen the sales of bikes drop off. If I want to put in there, that quota that you've given me, Mr. Manager, is absolutely ridiculous, and I can't get to that. This allows me to submit that via a mechanism, and it follows a workflow process. My manager can look at it, review it, and go, yeah, Rob, you're right. There's no way we're going to do that. Or, yeah, Rob, sorry, you're wrong. It's about time you got off your butt and actually went and sold something. So this whole workflow process allows us to build in the collaboration, which is key to making sure that we're actually getting the organisation moving down the same task, down the same track. Right, so we've got this lovely demo. Let's go. Righty-ho. 1, 2, 3. Fingers crossed. Hey, look at that. We started. Now you'll notice this little trick that presenters do. They always have the screen up in front of you, right? They never open it. And you know why? Because a cache takes forever to build, okay? So we open the screens, we have them ready for you, so we're ready to go. Now, that's only because of the environments we're running in. Single virtual machine. These aren't enterprise scale environments that we're doing these demos in. This all runs on this little box here. So normally what we have is one big virtual machine that's running SQL Server and MOS and performance point services and all the bits and pieces all crammed into one little virtual machine. Would you run your business like that? No. All right? So that's why we have problems with the demos sometimes, okay? Okay. Right. So in this scenario, we are Richard Breedy. And Richard's a marketing analyst. Okay, so Richard's responsible for understanding how the market trends are affecting the sales going on for Contoso. What you'll notice now inside SharePoint is there's a lot more information directly available to me about where I sit inside the organisation, who my managers are. Unfortunately, it looks like I've got way too many chiefs. That contact information is published and available for me, and that things like looking at the marketing site is actually available to me, so I can just click on this link. Now this homepage could be changed so that I went straight to the dashboard. Our dashboard looks like this. Okay, so what we've got here in our dashboard is the ability, first of all, to actually analyze this data by different parameters. So as a marketing analyst, I can say, hey, I might be more interested in Europe or Asia, or I might be interested in a different year-on-year comparison. I don't have to be bound by what the developer's imagination is, okay? So by having parameters in there, I can drive different views of the data, very much like a report. We've also got details about the different regional sales managers, so I can go in and I can click on them and sort of see how well they're doing. You'll see that there's a KPI right next to them. It's telling us straight away that something is off target. It's telling us that they may not be doing what they need to be doing. Then down the bottom here, we've got this nice little stacked bar graph, which allows us to sort of see how well we're doing in different measures across the business. On the right-hand side, we should have a map. But my internet connection is not working, so we're not seeing our Virtual Earth map pop up. Okay, otherwise we'd have a nice little map there with some hotspots on the map showing us what's going on. And then we actually have our scorecard and how well we're doing in our different product categories across our business. So you can see most of our stuff is running fairly closely to on target. What's the great thing about the way the scorecarding works is that all of the products roll up to an overall product category and give us a total KPI measurement. Okay, now that's what's known as a weighted KPI, and we can choose to either have our KPIs weighted and affect the total category, or we can choose not to put a KPI in there, or we can choose that some KPIs underneath the weighted KPI have different weightings. Okay, so there might be some things which are far more important, like maybe cell phone sales, unless they're at, say, maybe the percentage of cell phone sales needs to be the highest weighted KPI of all of those KPIs inside that group. We can change it to do those sorts of things. Yeah, all right so far? There's still a few more seats down here, guys. There's like a whole row of them, actually, just like there. Okay. Now, what are some of the things we can do? Right, so in the browser, we can now right-click, and we can drill down to, wait for it, it's coming. We can drill down to another part of our dimension. Okay, so maybe we want to look at sales amount by sales territory. Click on it, sales territory name, which probably won't make a huge amount of sense, but there we go. We can now drill down into that data and see what that looks like straight away. As you can see, it doesn't make a lot of sense in a stacked bar graph. So what else can we do? Well, let's have a look at this and let's analyze this in a decomposition tree. Who here's used ProClarity in the past? Who knows where this came from? Oh, that's pretty easy, isn't it? Gave you the answer in the question. Okay, so what happened is Microsoft purchased a company known as ProClarity, and a lot of the performance points services stuff that you're seeing in SharePoint 2010 came from there. They're very, very rich visualizations. A decomposition tree is sort of, well, we'll see it in a second. Here we go. Okay, it started to come through now. Okay, so these are all built in Silverlight, all these components, and a decomposition tree allows us to do analysis side by side of some data. So when we look at this, we're not seeing a lot, but we now might want to go and expand this out and have a look at it by product. And we'll have a look at it by the category description. Okay, so now we can see that our home appliances are our largest amount of sales that we've got. Let's have a look at this also by the channel that we're selling them by. You can see it's a catalogue. Not getting much more going on there. What about the employee? Okay, let's go back again and try a different employee. Level 2. We can also change these at the top here. We can change the ordering of this analysis that we're doing. So we're doing on-the-fly analysis, drilling through the cube. What type of reporting is this? Am I doing strategic or am I doing tactical? Tactical, right. Why am I doing tactical reporting? What's the difference between strategic and tactical reporting? Strategic's written for execs, right? I want to see how our business is performing at a glance. That's it. They want to be able to come in and have either a report or a web page or whatever it might be showing, yep, we're doing fine on our finances, yep, we're doing fine on our people, you know, and right across the business we're doing fine on our IT systems, all those sorts of things. They want to see the business at a glance. They don't want to have to go and chase and find data. As Donald said this morning, execs don't have the time to go and do that sort of thing. Execs want to get the information so they're presented with how they're going to change the strategic direction of a business. Right, so as you can see, there's lots of options where we can carry on drilling through this. Go and have a look at the individual stores even. One store, okay? What else can I do? Well, let's tell you what. Let's have a look at this. Actually, we'll do it here. Let's have a look at this in a grid. So now I can get to the actual data that's underlying as well. So now I'm seeing the data inside a web browser. I haven't had to open any other tools. I haven't had to go anywhere else. I've got it all here available for me. I can turn around and go, tell you what, let's have a look at this in the chart. There we go. And now I can start to drill through the chart as well. I can also go and have a look at some different measures. Sales. Perhaps I want to compare our sales amount to the discount amount that we apply. And now I'm getting our discount compared to our sales. It might be more relevant in a different type of chart. Let's put it in a pie chart. Okay? So you're seeing the freeform power that you've been given with this data set. What is this all based on? Does anyone know? Oh, sorry, not the tool itself, but the data that is lying underneath. It's a cube, that's right. That's why it's so fast. Even in a single virtual machine with all this software installed inside it, we're still getting very fast answers. The cubes are great for doing analysis, freeform ad hoc analysis like this, exploring the data, understanding the data. Okay, so we've got all those sorts of things. Why don't we have a look? Let's just switch back now to our slides. Hang on, is it back? Coming? I went too far. Sorry, guys. Number 1. There we go. That's better. Okay. So you can see here that there's some other things we can also embed inside these dashboards. For example, in this scenario, there's a sales territory map. That one's built using Visio services, whereas the one that I had built was using Virtual Earth. We're mixing data together inside the scorecard, okay? we are combining a scorecard with the different areas available for this. In this particular scenario, this has got a bunch of different states inside it and how well we're actually going against our particular sales quota. We're adding visualization, utilizing a dashboard. Adding visualization to our dashboard by utilizing charts and graphs, regions, all sorts of hotspots that we can do inside maps and bits and pieces as well. And we're also adding interactivity and workflow because we understand the people that are involved. As you saw in the dashboard that we had 3 people at the top and how well they were performing against their KPIs. We could contact them, we could send information to them. So, the mixing data in our scorecard, how do we do that? The data is actually, generally speaking, a mashup. Data warehouses are wonderful things. We spend a lot of time and a lot of money building data warehouses. But we can never get all the data inside an organization. There are people out there who have Excel spreadsheets, access databases, text files. They get sent information from other people. They have all this other data hanging around that we can't get access to or would be too time-consuming or not enough business value to incorporate into a data warehouse. So by allowing us to mix the data inside the scorecard, we can now make a mashup of data. So we've got all the clean and conformed and well-known data from inside there, and then we can do a mashup by bringing in external data sources into our scorecard as well. In this scenario here, this revenue per square, it's actually supposed to, I can't quite read what it says. Revenue per square mile. What that is comes from a SharePoint list. Now, SharePoint lists are a great way of starting to deal with some of the Excel issues that we have. Right? We've got people who keep track of stuff inside Excel. If they can keep track of it inside SharePoint, inside a list, it means that we can actually process that data and do something more appropriate with it. It's easier to share. We don't get into the whole emailing spreadsheet thing around as well. So, let's have a look at actually starting to build this scorecard. This is where the fun starts, right? Number 3? Number 3. Uh-oh. Windows has to be activated. Right. Actually, I meant to ask before, how many of you guys are using Performance Point Server 2007? A couple? Are any using 2010? 1. Wow. Performance Point Server 2007. Why is it, do you think, people aren't using it? Or the deployments have been so slow? Well, okay, how many people have data warehouses that they can build this stuff on? Okay, that's better. Right. How many people are using Microsoft tools such as reporting services for visualizing that data? Okay, huge amount more. Right. But, and of those people who are using reporting services, how many of you have MOS Enterprise in your environment? Quite a few. Now, do you know that because you've got MOS Enterprise, you've got access to all this stuff? You don't have to go out and relicense or anything like that. It's just there. So if you've got it, and you've got a good, well-conformed data warehouse, or at least a semi-conformed data warehouse, and you want to start doing some of this senior exec strategic level or tactical level reporting, you can use those tools, even in 2007. MOS 2007 Performance Point Server was a separate install, which is a bit of a pain and it was a bit ugly, but it was a separate install because it was sold as a separate product. And then it got rolled up into SharePoint 2007 as of, was it February of last year? January 2008. I was looking at Devon because we were working on a project at the time when they announced that it was no longer happening. And we had a customer that was going through a planning solution and putting in all the planning components, and then Microsoft turned around and said, nah, we're not really going to invest in that anymore. So we suddenly was like, ooh, what do we do now? Down tools, figure out where we're going. Right, okay, let's have a look at this. So, for those of you that have seen Dashboard Designer in the past, it hasn't changed significantly, but they have done some better things. Dashboard Designer in 2007 was upside down. You built the scorecard, or you built the dashboard first, then you built the scorecard, then you built the KPIs, then you built the connections, etc. It was upside down in the tree. What they've done now is they've turned it up the other way, so you're actually following logically where you go. So for example, we create data connections first. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a new data source from a SharePoint list. Right, so like any good cooking show, here's the URL that I copied earlier. And we're going to say that we're going to pull our SharePoint list from this SharePoint site. It's going to be all lists, and the one we're interested in is magically about to appear now. No, now. Okay, soon. When SharePoint decides to bring it back. While that's actually doing that, I'll just show you the list. Pop back here, intranet. These are the lists inside SharePoint here. Oh, there it is there. It's actually shown on the side. Look. I don't know why it does that sometimes. Okay, so we're connected now to a SharePoint list called sales data. We're going to use the unattended service account. In the second session I'll do today, we'll talk about the difference between unattended and per user identity. Then we can do, oh, that's not pretty. Let's try that again. We can now preview the data, even though it said no data, and we can see our data is now coming through from a SharePoint list. Looks awfully familiar to a spreadsheet inside Excel, doesn't it? Okay. So we now hooked this up to that. We'll give our data source a nice name. And you can put things like metadata descriptions around these, which is actually really relevant if you actually want to keep a history of where all your data sources come from inside your business. Okay. Right. Then what we can do is we can go off and we can go and build ourselves a new KPI based on that scorecard. So, oops. When you build a KPI, the first thing it does is it gives you a fixed value. So one of the things you can do inside the scorecards is you can actually have hard-coded values. This is really appropriate for soft measures, things that you can't get from data. You know, government departments have this all the time about how well they're doing inside the community and how much change you're affecting. It can't be measured, generally speaking. It's very hard to measure. So you tend to have these fixed values that an analyst comes in and modifies. We switch the data source to being our sales data. And we're going to select a measure. Oh, I changed the wrong one, didn't I? Oh, I didn't refresh it, that's why. Ah, sales data. Let's maybe take the space out of it, eh? Save. All right, try that again. New KPI, blank one. There it is, that's better. And we're going to select the measure from there. And of course, in you guys' environment, it would be lightning fast, really quick. Ding, ding, ding. Come on. Has that SharePoint list come back here while we're waiting for that? Let's have a look. Sales data. There you go. That's what it looks like inside SharePoint. Boy, it's certainly taken its time today. There we go. Finally got there. Okay. So sales quantity, that will do. And what we can do is we can put a fixed value against that to say what our target is going to be. Okay? So let's say our target is, let's just pop back and have a look at the sales data. Let's not pop back and have a look at the sales data. Okay, let's make a target of 20 then. There we go. We've got some ability to adjust our scoring patterns that we've got going on here, but we're going to leave that as it is for the moment. See, just when I thought it was all going smoothly, it starts to run very, very slow. That could be why. That SharePoint list might be quite large. Okay, good. We're back. Right, and we're going to create ourselves a new scorecard. Oops, standard blank scorecard. There we go. You also notice in the designer that there's a workspace as well. And that workspace shows us what we've got in our local environment as well as what's available in the SharePoint environment that we're pulling data from. Okay, so there's our new KPI. There's no data in it. We can just go and update that data. Okay, now we might want to slice that data by the product name dimension. Oops, where did I lose my scorecard? There it is. So we go to our dimensions. I forgot to put that connected to analysis services. Sorry, guys. Oh, why aren't you? Come on. No. No, it's not going to give it to me, is it? I didn't want to know about it. Ah, thank you. Here we go. Thanks, Marcel. There we go. And we can see here that we've got all of our products in here, which was probably a bit many, so we should have probably just take a few of them off here. Should have probably used product category. We now update that, and we can begin to see how well that we're tracking overall. Now, I set that target as 20, which I should have probably made a percentage if I could have seen the sales data sheet come through quicker. Okay, but you can see how now that we're mashing up data from analysis services as well as from an external source like SharePoint. What was the thing that linked the two of them together? Wow, did I lose you guys that fast? That's got to be a record for me. It's the product name. The product name is in the SharePoint list. We'll just pop back. So we've got the product name here as a dimension. And in our data set, our sales data set, there is a value, there is a dimension that has product name in it. As Marcel quite rightly pointed out to me, I didn't click the fact that there was sales data associated with that scorecard. Okay, so this is how you actually begin to start to mash this data up. Right, what else can we do? Those lovely decomposition trees. They are built based on a simple report. So all of that power that you get is from a basic report. So we're just going to create ourselves a new report. We're going to create a new analytic chart. And we're going to use the sales data for that. We'll just wait for that one to come through. Okay, so what we've got here now is we've got our dimensions, our measures that we want to look at. So let's bring in, say, something like sales amount. And then we're going to have a look at our sales territory. Let's have a look at region, that will be fine. And then we're going to have a look at our date. It's always good to look at stuff on date. Year, quarter, month, day. Should that be enough for our users to drill down with? Might be too much. Okay, so we've got this lovely new report which sort of shows us all of our sales amounts across all of our regions across all time. That's not particularly relevant. We might want to filter that out a little bit. So for example, we can go in and say we just want to look at the last 3 years. Now this data set we're dealing with only has 2007, 2008, 2009 data. And we may not be interested in all sales territories. We might only be interested in Actually, probably we'll take sales territory off and we will go and grab ourselves country instead. Because we now are only interested in the United States. Okay, so we can see what's going on in the US for that period. Now we can also go and break that down by region as well. And we're getting a value of what's going on in the United States in the particular regions. We might want to look at this as a stacked bar chart, which is going to get pretty busy pretty quick. So we can actually also go down and say, tell you what, we're not interested in all of the regions. We're only interested in Washington State, Texas, and New York. There you go. And now we've got a nice and simple bar chart that's sort of showing information relevant to our users. Now, these things can be parameterized. We've got the ability to pass parameters into our query in the back. And I don't know the answer to this, so I'm hoping the audience knows the answer to this. In in Performance Point Server 2007, when you modified the MDX behind the dashboard, you could no longer do the drill down. You know that pretty drill down stuff that I showed you? You couldn't do that. So what I don't know is if you modify the MDX inside 2010, does that stop it? Does the same thing happen? Anyone know? You're expecting me to write MDX on the fly, aren't you? Yeah, right. That's right. Okay, so we can now that we've got a KPI and a new report, we'll go and build ourselves a quick new little scorecard. And sorry, not a scorecard, a dashboard, a new dashboard. And like SharePoint, it has the concept of zones or web parts. Okay, so you can have a multi-zone, so you've got all sorts of things going on. You've got split zones in 3 rows and all sorts of bits and pieces. So you do need to think about your design quite carefully, especially for information that you're presenting. One of the problems, the thing is you don't actually have to build a scorecard using a multi-zone, even though you're adding 2 parts to it. So we're going to build one on a single zone. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our new scorecard. Which one was it? 2? Okay. We'll bring that one in like that. And we'll bring our new report in as well. And we can put it beside it or above it or wherever it might be. Okay. So this is just a single zone one. You can go and modify the name of the page so it's not called page 1, etc., all those sorts of things. Right. And save that. And now we want to publish that. This will go off and talk to SharePoint again and say, where do you want to deploy it? That include page list for navigation option that was at the bottom there, sorry, that I skipped over, is if you've got multiple pages inside your dashboard, it will include a left-hand click nav, so you can just click through them. Okay? And we should see, oh, I really shouldn't have opened that. That sales data list. It's quite hard cramming your time into an hour now. The shortened sessions. How do you guys like the shortened sessions? Are they good? Do you prefer them? Yeah? A few nods? No, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more content crammed into the days now too, isn't there? That's right, you got the Tech Fest tonight. So you guys will all be on fire for tomorrow, won't you? Eh? Oh. Actually, I was really surprised one year. I was presenting, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, and I got the 9 a.m. session on the Wednesday, and I really thought that nobody would turn up, and a bunch of people did. I was really surprised. Right. This is just busy refreshing at the moment, but you can see because I put 2 of them into a single zone, it's really crammed our report up. Okay, it's made it really, really hard to see it. So maybe using multiple zones is better. Also, when I published this, it inherited the look and feel of SharePoint on the outside. So I got all this great big banner and all this other stuff around that may not be relevant for my dashboard environment. This might be very, very good if I'm doing sort of standard information inside MOS. So, that's employee information and contact information and those sorts of things. But it is probably not very relevant when you're trying to build a lot of very rich content for a manager to come in and get an at-a-glance view. Okay. While that's still updating, we're going to go down and we're going to go and say we want to see this in a decomposition tree. And that will pop up in a new decomposition tree and allow us to start slicing through the data. Sometime soon. I'm just going to check my mini guide to find out what time I have to stop. Oh, 6:25. Oh. Okay, next one's 2:55. How many minutes do they give you to get to them? 10 or something, is it? Yeah, okay. So we've got a bit of time. It's good. And see, as you can see, I haven't had to build this. This is a great thing about it, is that all I had to do was provide the basic structure for where I want the users to navigate to. Okay? Does that make sense? Right. How many of you have built OLAP cubes before? Okay. How many of you love to build hierarchies in your OLAP cubes? There's quite a few. Okay. Now, in Performance Point, what happens, if we jump back to an example you can actually see, like this one here, and I right-click and I go drill down to, that is showing me all of the dimensions that are available to me in that cube. Who here knows what a perspective is? Okay, a lot less hands. Because sometimes when we're showing information like this, it's not relevant to allow our users to drill down by all of the information that's available. Okay, so for example, if we're looking at regional information, it may not be relevant to allow them to drill down to either a store level because of sensitivity, or it may not be relevant to allow them to cross-match that with internet sales because they're looking at a region, so therefore it doesn't make any sense, so we'll get nonsense results. We limit this by using perspectives. Perspectives are like views in databases. Most people know what views are? Yeah? And so by creating perspectives, we then filter out the things that don't make sense to combine together. So we get rid of the fact that you could slice this by the channel of internet. We would remove internet, or we'd remove currency, or potentially geography. One of the problems that we had in Performance Point Server 2007 was that if we went and looked at this in a new window, and we started to slice through this data, drill down to date, and we chose calendar year out of the hierarchy, it doesn't actually give us a breadcrumb to tell us where we got to. The hierarchies are lost. Whereas if we drill down by standard measures or standard dimensions, attributes, we can find our way back again all the time. So I'll see if I can give you an example of what that means. Let's just reset this view. So we're back to where we were, and we're going to turn on the... come on, Rob, where is it? It's not the legend? No, it's not the legend. Year 2007, sales and deluxe. Let's drill down by region. Where's region gone? Geography. Okay. It obviously was not turned on in the view. Normally there's a little information thing that we can turn on inside our reports to actually show the user how they've gotten to where they've got to. So it actually builds up like a little breadcrumb. It's not clickable. You can't go back. But it shows you at least how you got to that path. Okay? Because one of the biggest things, of course, is when you export this out to Excel or PowerPoint to go and show the senior execs, and they go, well, how did you find this information? And you go, I don't know. I guessed. Doesn't really go down particularly well. Right. Okay, so what we looked at there, connecting up our data sources. Okay, you can see there that it was quite easy to connect to a SharePoint list. We can do the same with Excel services or Excel or any ODBC compliant data source, so it could be an Access database or a SharePoint, or a SQL Server database or an Oracle database or whatever it might be. Okay, wherever you can pull the information from. We then created a KPI, and then we linked that KPI via a standard dimension that's associated with the data set that we're looking at. Okay, you do have to find a way of keying those together, very much the same as you do with Power Pivot. If you don't do it in Power Pivot, you just get this nonsense thing that comes back again. Happens in analysis services all the time when you're browsing a cube and you're going, oh, all the numbers are the same. It's just because you've sliced the data in an invalid way. Then we created a scorecard and added it to the dashboard. And why didn't that flick? I know why that didn't. Whoops. Wrong one. There we go. Okay. We actually went through and we actually added the visualization because I skipped ahead, got ahead of my slides a little bit. So we went ahead and we added the visualization to our scorecard. Now that can be a combination of analytical charts. It's the launching point for these decomposition trees. Those decomposition trees are very, very powerful. They were a big, big feature of ProClarity. And it's a lot of the things that people really wanted to see. There is something similar inside Visio. In Excel, we have pivot tables. In Visio, we had pivot charts. And pivot charts are actually very, very powerful. They're quite nice. You can fire them up and sort of see a little bit of a demo. If I've got time, I'll quickly show you one. We can also build strategy maps. This one's built in Visio. You can build them in Virtual Earth or, goodness forbid, Google Maps or something like that, and overlay the data on top of a map. That is also very powerful, especially when you're dealing with multiple regions. See? So we're ahead of that demo now. Okay, the other things we can do. We can start to filter the data. So we can build filters into the data. Now we can build what's known as time intelligence. I don't know if when I was connected to the data sources you guys saw that time intelligence tab. What that does is allow us to build a rolling 3-year process. So for example, we might have financial data compared for this year and last year, or this year and 5 years ago, or however it might have been. When we move from 2010 to the 2011 fiscal year, we want that to automatically roll over. That's what the time intelligence does for us. It will just move us year on year. We can also, by using SharePoint, we can create lists that have workflow on them. So if I make a change to the list, it gets approved by somebody before it's reflected in the scorecards. That is quite a simple process to do. Inside SharePoint, you can actually when you create a new list, you can wrap a little bit of workflow around it and put an approval process on it. That approval process can be semi-complicated, i.e. it can go through 2 or 3 different levels, but generally speaking, they go through a maximum of 3. I don't think I've seen anyone go through beyond that. So, the lessons that we've learnt. It's pretty easy to create rich and interactive dashboards. But, what is it going to depend on? Data. That's right. It's the heart of an organisation. Right? And it's everywhere. Inside most businesses, they have spreadsheets and they've got people with knowledge and they've got magazines, they've got subscriptions they subscribe to, and they get sent data and all sorts of things all the time that we never see and we never know and we can't interact with. That's why these mashups are now becoming available. That's why I should be able to go and just grab data and sort of combine it with what's going on inside the data warehouse to get an overall view of what's happening inside my organisation. Also, by adding workflow to the solution, it's going to encourage collaboration. If there's a process that I have to go through, for example, I'm not meeting my sales quota, and I've then got to submit a report to say why I'm not meeting my sales quota. And that's then rolled up to my manager, who looks at it and goes, you're joking. There's no way that that's caused you your problems. It's at least forcing me to actually explain what's going on, why I'm not getting there. And that is basically about it. Now, for those of you that want to see it, I can sort of show you the Visio pivot charts and things like that. But there's all this tweet information that they'd like you to put up. Now, I'm not a tweeter. I'm assuming there's a few people in here that are. No one puts their hands up. Is it embarrassing to be one or something? I'm a little bit behind the times, a bit old and crusty, and, tweeting's not really my thing, but basically you can go in the drawer for the keyboard and the mice. For those of you that actually want to understand the security and all that sort of thing, we've got a big bribe inside there. We've got Steve Letford coming along to actually stand on stage and be my pretty assistant, and he's going to give stuff away. There is a reason for that. I have to reboot the virtual machines during the presentation, so we will have a little bit of downtime while those machines reboot. But we'll play it by ear and see how well we go. And that's about it. There we go, guys. Thanks for being a good audience, being patient with me.